Should you hire a DJ or a band for your wedding? That is one of the most popular questions that we get asked, and it's one that I'm sure that you want to know the answer to. So first of all, why should you listen to myself? My name is Nathan Op De Coul. I'm the Managing Director of Melbourne Entertainment Company and entertainmentco.com.au. We are one of the leading wedding entertainment suppliers in Australia, particularly in the Melbourne market. So let's talk a little bit about the differences first of all. So you've got a DJ. I should also add that I am personally myself, I'm a DJ, so I'm a little bit biased. I'm also a sax player though. So in a way I'm kind of a bit of a combination of both a DJ and a band. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. But a DJ, first of all, a DJ is a bit more versatile than a band. So when I say the word versatile, what I mean by that is they have the ability to play pretty much any song that you want. If a song exists, it can be found, it can be played. For bands, taking a request on the night is a little more difficult. You can't just all of a sudden, learn the song on the spot. The band has to know that, and it usually has to be a relatively common song in order for it to be in the band's repertoire already. So for taking requests, DJs can be a little bit more versatile. So that's definitely a tick in the DJ front. Let's talk a little bit more about interactivity though, because that's something that definitely the band has over a DJ as an advantage. So for a DJ, they pretty much have to stay behind the decks the whole time throughout the night. They have to be changing songs, picking songs, moving buttons, changing faders. Everything has to be done from behind the decks here, and it's harder for a DJ to be more interactive. They can dance around a little bit behind the decks, they can point at some people, but they will never have quite the same level of interaction that you get from a live band. So a live band, they have, they've got a front singer, a woman, a man, many players that can either step a bit out onto the dance floor, maybe a sax player that can jump in amongst the crowd and actually play with the crowd. But you've got that real live presence that the live music has that you can't quite capture with a DJ. So in that regard, a band would have more of an advantage over a DJ on the interactivity front. Let's talk a bit about cost. Obviously, cost is a major factor. Weddings aren't cheap, we know that, but they are an investment in the happiest day of your life, or what's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. So you definitely don't want to skimp out on having some poor quality entertainment, because entertainment will punch well above its weight in terms of the investment categories. Sometimes we like to use the example of saying that if your entertainment might cost less than 10% of your total wedding budget. However, if done poorly, your entertainment can ruin 50 to 60% of your day and your evening. So think about that. But having said that, obviously a band is going to generally cost more than a DJ because you've got more people there. You've got to pay twice as many staff, or that's just for 2 people, maybe a 3 or 4 or 5 person band. You've got 5 band members to pay, whereas a DJ is usually 1. So if that's a factor, there's also travel costs, or if you're interstate, accommodation costs, meals for the band members, that sort of thing. They all do add up. So obviously a band is going to be a slightly more costly option than a DJ. But having said that, there are some great alternatives where you can combine some a DJ and a band too. So we might jump to that question now, which is can you have both? And the answer is absolutely yes. Of course you can have both a DJ and a band at your wedding. It actually works the best because you get a great combination of the versatility of a DJ to be able to play those key songs or some of those requests when they get announced or get asked by your guests. But you get the live element that a band brings that a DJ just can't compete with. So having a combination of those two on the night is exceptional. It's really good. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what we have as an offering to combine the two in a second. So let's talk a little bit about breaks as well for bands, something in consideration to have. Bands can't play for 5 hours straight. They just can't. They're gonna get tired. They need a break. They need a 15-minute break, usually every hour, or a 10-minute break or thereabouts. DJs, it's less taxing on a DJ, so they can continue just to play and continue through. Throughout the whole night. Bands will, however, they'll usually put an iPod on or something in between, so usually you won't have that lull in music. But yeah, DJs I've got a bit more longevity in that regard, so you don't have to worry about a band taking a 15-minute break in between the middle of the dance floor set, which usually won't happen. The bands, and particularly our bands, are trained to read the room, so they're not just going to, if the band's still pumping, they're not just going to all of a sudden stop. But they do need a break. But on the other foot, sometimes that can be a benefit, because if your band, dancing can be well broken into segments sometimes. To have like a 45-minute set, and then people can go and get a drink, go to the bathroom, do what they need to do, and then they'll come back when the band comes on. So that can work quite well there. Let's talk about the timeline of how bands and DJs work and when they play. So if you were to have both, which was the question we posed before, usually you would have a band or an acoustic option over your ceremony time or your canapé time, something nice, soothing, relaxing, acoustic covers. Think beautiful cocktails with a champagne, Aperol Spritz out on the deck, or wherever your canapé area is in your wedding venue. You'll usually then want to have, you do have the option, but more commonly the DJ will play a couple of your specific requests for when you enter during your bridal entrance. Often if you'll have more than one song, for example, you might have 2 or 3 songs, for this couple has one song, this couple has this song. That's harder to do for a band or for an acoustic musician. It's almost impossible. Whereas a DJ can actually queue up specific points of different songs and play those as different couples are entering. So you can personalize the entrance song for each couple if you wish, and that's definitely an advantage the DJ has. It doesn't really make sense for the band to all of a sudden cut halfway into a song and play from the middle of the chorus. It'll sound a little bit more odd, and it will be more difficult and challenging for the band, particularly to do that 3 or 4 times. It's going to sound a little bit funny. So if you're thinking of different songs for different people on the entrance, DJ is definitely a way to go. But how combine a DJ and a band? So the DJ and the band would have to set up before your wedding. That's a very important aspect to think about. A lot of our inquiries will come in and say, oh, we only need the DJ for the last 2 hours, which is a great thought. Really the DJ, you might only want the DJ from 9 till 11 p.m., for example, on your wedding. However, one consideration they haven't thought about is you can't just have a DJ arrive at 8:30 or 8 o'clock, set up, and then start playing at 9, because they're going to be wheeling their equipment through your crowd sitting down having dinner. It's going to look odd, and you just don't want that, considering how much money and how much time you've invested into your beautiful day. So it's definitely recommended that you have your DJ arrive beforehand with the band, and it's usually best to have them, to be honest with you, playing interchangeably throughout the night, so that the DJ is DJing when the band's not playing for the first few hours, and then and just alternating that way on and off, so you get a bit of variety. That's the best way to have it work. And to be honest with you, I know what you might be thinking. Oh, it's going to be cheaper to have our DJ just rock up for 2 hours. That's all we need. We only need 2 hours. You're going to be quoted at roughly the same price for a 2-hour set from 9 till 11 as you are from 6 until 11 with the 5 p.m. setup, because we as the business who has to pay the DJs will have to pay them idle time and have to pay them bump in anyway. So that's a consideration to take into account. That don't think you're going to get a great deal just by saying I only need 1 hour of DJing or 2 hours of DJing. These DJs are not going to come out for just 1 hour of time. They're still going to get paid as they would for a normal evening. So it's something that you may not have considered there. So hopefully that wraps up the answer of can you have both a DJ and a band at your wedding? The answer is definitely unresoundingly yes, and it's awesome when you do. If you're more constrained for budget, we have a bit of a solution, which is a DJ who has an additional skill, who might play the saxophone. That's what I do. As I said, I'm a bit biased before. I'm a DJ who plays the saxophone. We have DJs who sing. There are DJs who also play guitar. And so you can actually have one entertainer throughout the entire day. And that will be more cost efficient because you've only got one entertainer to pay for. So that can be a great solution. You've got a bit of live interactivity from that additional skill that they can do, whether that's singing, whether that's sax, gives them a reason to jump into the crowd, get involved. Whereas if your DJ who's standing behind the decks, if he doesn't have an additional skill and he just goes and starts dancing with the crowd, people might think he's trying to he or she is trying to pick up one of the bridesmaid or groomsmen, and that's just not a great look. So there's no reason for the DJ to get out onto the dance floor. Whereas if you've got an additional skill, like a saxophone, like a singer, like a percussion, or a guitar, a reason to get out there, that will give you that level of interactivity that a DJ cannot grab. And we call those a hybrid DJ. It's actually what we're very well known for in our business. It's what we spend a lot of time training, and it's what we think is going to be a great solution over the next 10 years in wedding entertainment. So definitely inquire about that. Obviously, some considerations if you were to go with that is a little bit more of a risk because you're placing all of your entire wedding entertainment into one person. But not to worry, if you go with a reputable company like us, we have many our talent list is very strong. So there's many options and backup contingency plans in case anything happens. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview of the question of whether I should have a wedding band or a DJ. It's probably a question that's on your lips. You probably, maybe your fiance wants a band and you want a DJ, or vice versa. Or maybe you want both, but you just think, man, I just don't know how we're going to be able to, afford to pay for both, because it is going to push the price up. But my parting piece of advice would be that do consider wedding entertainment as something that should be as important as your venue or photographer. Those are the top three. And people often will prioritize things like cocktails on arrival, or bon boniere, having nice name cards. That stuff, it looks great, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break your wedding. Having poor quality entertainment can make or break your wedding. So do think about that, because you just don't want to have someone who's 30 or 40 years outside your age bracket, rocking up, playing the nut bush, expecting everyone to dance, throws on the chicken dance, it looks uninterested. Or even on the other side of the coin, you get a young 17, 18, 19-year-old kid who's on his phone on Tinder all night, swiping left, rocks up in a t-shirt, thinks it's too cool. You've got to make sure that you invest in a professional, someone who knows what they're doing, someone who is well trained. So I can't speak highly enough to that. Thank you so much, guys. My name's Nathan again from the Melbourne Entertainment Company and entertainmentco.com.au. We'll see you next time for another question.